welcome to the UXR Minds podcast. This is the last episode of 2023, and it's a good one. I'm interviewing Jessica Wolff, the User Experience Director at United Healthcare. Jessica Wolff got a lot of experience. We spoke and actually met via the Be More ADP List Festival. She reached out and offered her support to the podcast, which was really nice of her. And she's a great person, got a lot of experience, especially as a UX engineer, which at the time of recording, she was a senior UX engineer. So we kind of focus on that in this episode and what a UX engineer is. So you guys that are maybe in engineering or development, potentially a career opportunity to switch over to UX in this field. Since she's been promoted to the Director of User Experience, which I congratulate her on. And yeah, let's get into this episode. There's a lot of gems and nuggets in this, so listen well, and yeah, let's go. Okay, so I'd like to welcome Jessica Wolff to this week's episode. Really happy to meet you. Virtually. I always start off the podcast saying this, but it's nice to meet you virtually. We crossed paths at the Be More Festival. So it was nice to kind of get in touch with you and then also kind of find out a bit more about you via the messages. So Jessica Wolff works for United Healthcare, is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yes. Okay. As a senior UX engineer. So nice also to get our first UX engineer onto the podcast. So I'll allow you a bit of time now to explain, maybe talk about your background, how you got into UX engineering, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me too. So with my background, and I think it's similar to a lot of people in UX, where we kind of adopt the UX field because it brings us to this one location. My background started in marketing and management. So I went to school for management and marketing at University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. Went there and then spent a few years after that working in roles within marketing, within management as well, and loved it. But the one thing that I realized is I was really interested in how things worked, the tools that I was using, how things were put together, how systems worked and different products. So I jumped into looking into what was formerly called Lambda School, which is now Bloom Tech Institute, which is a full stack engineering program. It's a 9-month full immersion program where you kind of go in, you do the 9 months, and then on the back end, you end up becoming a full stack engineer. So in 2020, I graduated from Lambda School, which is now Bloom Tech, like I said, and got into the full stack engineering world, primarily focused on UX engineering, which was that relationship between design and development. So a lot of my peers loved the back end or they loved the front end, but I particularly loved the design aspect of the front end, and beyond just CSS, but also wanted to create the frames and build things out in Figma. So from there, I found a few jobs working in front end engineering, and that was great. And being able to use my UX design as well in those roles. But then coming to United Healthcare, I found the role of UX engineer, which really married the two, the development and the design aspect. So finding that role and becoming a UX engineer is really that relationship between the two of them. And a lot of times UX engineers end up on a design system team, which I am on currently. So, so a lot of my day-to-day work is looking at designs, building out designs in Figma, and now passing it off to engineers. In the past, I have also committed code to the design system and worked within the code base. But yeah, it's a lot of the design and understanding and having empathy on both sides of the system, of the engineering side and the designers, so we can kind of put together a cohesive project. Okay,
that's interesting. So just for me as well to understand what a UX engineer is, because I've never personally worked with one before. So if I've understood correctly, you're kind of in between the UX design team and the engineering team. So you're kind of like the bridge that helps kind of hand over the work. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's the product designers and then the design system designers and
Okay.
engineers and stuff. And we are kind of an internal team within United Healthcare that builds this product for product teams.
Right.
So we work very heavily with our engineering team, working on the specs, the functionality, the properties,
Right.
all those things that kind of meld together with the
Right.
code as well, making sure things and components and different assets are all available and work correctly for our
Right.
users in any context.
Okay. So do you also kind of not vet the work, but like once, I don't know, a project is finished or a certain, I don't know, UI feature has been completed, do you go through that with the engineers or kind of make sure all the components have been transferred over correctly, etc.?
Exactly. Yeah, we
Okay.
do a demo project basically, or demo
Right. Okay.
meetings, I guess, of making sure things are built
Yeah.
correctly, down to the spec.
Nearly everything.
Every single thing is correct, and yeah, that's a big part of the job. Yep.
That's cool. That's cool. Very nice. And so I imagine it's a large company. I'm not familiar with your company.
Yeah.
So kind of how is the team comprised? Is it a large team? Do you have like varying UX kind of members? And I imagine obviously engineering members. Like, can you give a bit of insight into that?
Yeah, sure. So United Healthcare is a large company. We're a Fortune 5.
Hmm.
The design system is a decently lean team. We have, 20 or so people on the team, ranging from designers, product managers, and product owners. We also have
Hmm.
accessibility engineers and quality engineers as
Hmm.
well. And then, of course, our engineering team as well.
Okay.
And they're specialized on either web responsive, so React, or React Native, which is mobile.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Very nice. Very nice. And just to maybe go back, so if I remember correctly, you said you were kind of in marketing. You studied marketing, sales, management, etc. Um, have you found that those kind of skills in marketing, etc., or sales, that you were able to transfer those over to what you're doing now, or have you seen any crossover?
Yeah, absolutely. The marketing aspect for sure, because marketing requires, to really have a great understanding of a brand image and
Mm.
to follow that through in all the platforms of a company.
Mm.
Um, a design system focuses primarily on the digital platforms. So making sure our product looks seamless across all of the different interactions of the company is the main role of the design system. So working from that angle, making sure everything is kind of fitting our brand image, as well as the management that comes through of working with stakeholders, different product teams aligning to their mission and their goals.
Mm.
That's all kind of part of the job. So that management comes through as well, along with managing the team underneath me and within our
Mm.
own team. That product management comes through. So yeah, it's definitely pulling from the different background
Mm.
things that I've experienced throughout my career.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And do you oversee a team? So obviously utilizing
I
your
do.
management skills. That's cool. How
Yes.
big's the
Yep.
team that you oversee?
So I have one direct report and then a couple
Okay.
of other designers who are, yeah, along the route, but yeah, not direct reports.
That's cool. That's cool. No, nice. It's always nice to talk about because I've spoken to various people now on this podcast and they all come from varying backgrounds, like varying, like they sometimes study something completely different to what they're doing now. Like probably in your
Yeah.
case at marketing, I suppose UX engineering is probably completely different. So it's also nice to see that you can kind of come from a different background or come from a different role completely and still make a successful transition over while utilizing the skills that you learned in the past. So that's good. What advice would you give to someone that maybe is wanting to do a complete career transition to UX engineering? Because it's not just from my experience looking around when I was studying UX research, it's not a role that I came across too often, UX engineering, and maybe, I don't know, like I'm just kind of speaking off the top of my head now, but I didn't come across many UX engineering resources as well. So if you do know any that are useful as well, then feel free to share them. But what advice would you give to someone that does want to make that transition over?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I would say if you're looking at the engineering, the second half of the role,
Mm,
engineering is to really understand, CSS, understand JavaScript, be able to speak to the different functionality that is involved in engineering or development on the front
okay.
end. The back end, thankfully, I don't need to spend much time over there, but understanding how things work.
Okay.
And then for UX, it would be your love for design and making things beautiful.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I would say focus on the two of them, the development and the design aspect of it.
okay.
With that, also, you know, understand as well because UX engineers are often on design system teams, um, looking at the small paint stroke that makes up a painting.
Hmm.
Consider it, a very small aspect of what you think, is just a button, but it ends up becoming a larger picture when you spread that across multiple products.
Mm,
So having a love for that as well, making sure
okay.
pixels are correct and sizing, everything is correct, and it impacts all of our designers down the line.
Mm,
That's something that's really fun and engaging. So if that's something that you could see yourself doing, definitely look into that and
mm.
consider design system teams as well.
Okay. So it seems very detail oriented, this specific
Yes.
job. That's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. Have you like maybe mentored or hired a junior UX engineer? I'll cut that bit out and I'll start again. So are
Okay.
you so United Healthcare, have you ever hired a junior UX engineer?
We've hired UX designers and we've also hired
Nice.
junior developers. And surprisingly, we've had a couple junior developers who have said, I think I really love the design aspect of what you do. Tell me
Mm,
more about that. And how can I get into that? And what should I be learning to kind of get to this role?
mm,
And so, somebody who is actually, so I'm a lead for the mobile app side of our design
okay.
system, and the leader of the web responsive side of our design system. She was one of those engineers, just like myself, who we've found our path through engineering and into UX design. And so it's happened, and you can be incredibly successful if you're into one, but you also find your love and passion within
Mm,
the other side of things. Um, so that has been surprising, has been really cool to see the differences and how incredibly valuable it is to have that
mm,
background in engineering, being able to bring that into
yeah.
UX design, and the functionality that matches development is
Mm,
really awesome to see their growth. So that's been really cool. No
mm,
technical UX engineers necessarily that we've hired as a junior,
mhm,
but again, like I said, it's been a lot of growth. People have kind of found this role, and the term UX engineer is so brand new. It's that
yeah.
marriage between the two of them.
It's
So
true.
yeah, I think people are kind of finding that they're interested in it rather than being immersed in it from the education level.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well, just in the UX field in general, because like like in the past, obviously it existed, but just it existed in different forms and different sorts of people were, I don't know, a user experience designer or researcher or engineer, etc. And I think now, like as kind of UX as a field starts to become more defined, as roles become clearer, you do find new roles kind of popping up, like UX engineer. So like when I saw that that's what you did, I was intrigued, like, okay, is it a developer or is it a UX designer
Yeah.
that does a bit of developing? So it's also nice to see these roles become more defined. And also it's exciting for maybe an engineer who has, I don't know, a passion for design, and maybe they want to maybe venture into design, but they don't know how because they also love what they're doing as a front end engineer. So it's also nice that this role is appearing and it's something that they can kind of be that bridge between design and engineering. So that's nice. How do you see the UX engineer field kind of growing or moving forward? Do you see any challenges or anything to be excited about in the UX engineering field?
As far as being excited about, I think more and more companies are realizing the importance of a design system,
Mm,
bringing, rather than product teams having to come up with these custom solutions for every product team that are
mhm,
similar across the board and that we can align together. Design systems pull that all together and have a
mhm,
seamless experience regardless of the user. So I think that's something really exciting for in the UX engineering field is that design systems are, new-ish. I think 2015 is when they were invented. Don't quote me on
mhm.
that, but
No,
they
don't worry,
were
I will
they were
hold you down
recent.
to it.
Yeah, they definitely were recent. So as they grow and they become more important and become the pinnacle of design in
Mhm,
different enterprises and organizations around the industry. That's a great spot for UX engineering.
mm,
Um, Along with that, it's also you can imagine between design and development on a product team level that relationship can sometimes be difficult because each one have different priorities. They realize that different things are important, or
mm,
functionality that's not available, or accessibility that needs to be considered throughout that process. And that UX engineer is able to really empathize and talk to each one of those sides and understand
mm.
kind of where they're coming from and maybe mitigate some of those issues that can arise early
Yeah.
on or later on in the process.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. No, that's an interesting point as well. I'd like to go back to the design systems comment, not the year that it, it became a thing, don't worry. But I was just intrigued, also mainly for our listeners that may be completely new to UX or just even maybe have seen UX engineering online and maybe you're thinking, oh, that could be something I'm interested in. So for all of those ones, what is a design system? Also a bit for me as well. What is a design system? How does it work? What is it
Yeah.
used for?
Yeah, sure. So a design system is comprised of components such as buttons and links and
Mhm,
data tables and things similar to that, along with assets such as hooks on the engineering side, brand assets such as logos, illustrations, along with a style guide for how to use those correctly, incorrectly, kind of helping people understand um, how to put things together to create the flow that makes the company holistic from a design
okay.
side. So the design system is kind of your source of truth, your single source of truth for how to put things together, and then we give you the tools to do those. So, like I said, buttons is the easiest, and I think if anyone thinks of a design system, you're probably thinking of a button
Yeah, that's what
because
came to my mind.
it's usually the first asset to be created.
Okay.
So, so yeah, the design system is the tool that the
Right.
designers will use to pull in a lot of common assets. So you don't have to recreate the wheel every time you're thinking of a flow. If there
Okay.
is a form, for example, we have the inputs. We have the select list. We have the input, the text input, the whatever that might be,
Hmm.
checklists or radio buttons or whatnot. So
Hmm.
so rather than recreating that and thinking about every pixel, how much space between the label and the radio button? What's the
Right.
pixel difference between, spacing of different input fields and vertically or horizontally? We give you
Hmm.
that all out of the box.
Yeah.
So as a product designer, your job is to put those together in the flows that make sense for your product. You're focused more on the flows, and it takes that weight and burden off of the product teams.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Also, I imagine of the UX designers as well that they can focus on just the more creativity side of things and getting down the UI and how it should look. And then you would take over
Exactly.
more creating those into components too. Okay. I think I'm getting it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I think the way that from your explanation, I would maybe convert it into layman's terms. So if you have a flat pack IKEA furniture that you buy, and you have all of the, so you don't have to make the cupboard yourself. So the components would be obviously all of the pieces to make your eventual cupboard, and maybe the instructions would be the design system. Yeah, I think maybe that's what
Yeah.
if I've
Yeah,
understood it
that'd be
correctly.
great.
And you would just
I would
follow that and
say
create your cupboard.
yes, exactly. Yep.
There we go. I've got it. No, that's cool. That's cool. Thanks for kind of going into that as well. I know I didn't want to put you on the spot to something too technical, but I imagine your day-to-day role is quite easy to to go into on that sort of level. So thank you.
For sure.
So thinking now also about going back to maybe someone who wants to transition to this field, and maybe after listening to this episode, they think, oh, like maybe I'd like to be a UX engineer. In terms of like, so applying for a UX engineer specific role, like what does someone have to do, or what things should they focus on? Is there a portfolio in this field? And if so, kind of what does that look like? If not, how would you demonstrate your skills or your experience, even if it's not specifically related to UX engineering because it's such a new field? So how could someone kind of make that pivot like to this field in an interview process or in an application?
Great question. I built my portfolio, for example, using React, building it on the engineering side as well as designing it in Figma. So being able to show off, for examples that I had in my portfolio, I put down some design examples, but the portfolio itself being built by me was also kind of a testament of what I can do. So linking your GitHub, being able to show that you've pushed some code, letting them dig around in that and seeing what you're capable of, as well as being able to see on the design side what you do as well. I think that's been helpful in illustrating the difference and the connection between the two of them. So yeah, again, it's kind of that holistic approach, end-to-end design to development.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, that seems like because from my point of view, that might seem like a lot, like, because obviously just from how you explained, it's like someone may think, oh wow, so I need to be a UX designer and like do all the video
That's true, yes.
and then also be an engineer and show that I made the thing. So is that how it should be? Is that what a UX engineer should be able to demonstrate, that they can be a UX designer and put together a UI based on research or feedback, all the way through to having a working, functioning app or whatever it is? Is that what they should be able, I'll repeat, is that what they should need to demonstrate?
I think we can simplify it by saying you should have a GitHub that has some code in it. Maybe it doesn't need to be an active app. There is some, technical stuff that goes into actually having a live app that might, would be an excellent addition to what you're capable of doing. So you don't need to be able to have an app up and running, but making sure that you can show off in some regard your ability to understand CSS and JavaScript. Maybe that's working on just a little GitHub project and having screenshots of what you were able to create. Also, just the design side as well, and having different case studies showing that you've kind of dove into design as well. And whether it's figuring out a UX flow, maybe recreating, let's say there's an experience that you're familiar with and you're not a fan of it, maybe redesigning that flow in some way and showing off how it could be a better experience and why. That's what I would say. You definitely don't need to have a live app or website or something like that to show off your skills. But yeah, a little addition if that's available to you.
Okay, no, that's cool. That's cool. Just to kind of make it, I don't know, not as such a daunting task if someone doesn't want to enter the UX engineering field. Because I know when I was looking into kind of which path I wanted to choose, like it all seemed daunting, even from maybe a UX design point of view. Maybe you think, I need to also demonstrate that I can do research. And then from a UX researcher's point of view, like I have a portfolio. I need to show how my research could potentially look in a design. So all of this can sometimes feel overwhelming because you want to focus on one kind of
Yeah.
skill set, or focus not on the skill set, but focus on one particular role. But quite often in interviews or job applications, they also want to see kind of outcomes of that, or they want to see the whole process from research to design. And obviously now with UX engineering, design to engineering and maybe a build. So it was just to make sure that it wasn't too overwhelming for someone.
Yes.
Maybe to like round it up as well, our discussion. So if someone is sat now listening and says, yeah, this is definitely something I want to get into or start looking into, are there any resources, like UX engineering specific resources that someone can go to? Or do they need to kind of, I don't know, enter the back door? I don't know, focus more on development first and engineering, and then like couple that with UX studies, just generalized UX studies? Or how would they go about that?
Yeah, good question. There are some. Okay, so for resources, I would say Design plus Code.
Mm-hmm.
They're a great resource, or Design and Code. They're a great resource of showing that the relationship between the two of them. They help,
Okay.
engineering to design. They also help design to engineering. They have some great courses there that I would definitely suggest to check out. I know that helped me out early on in my career,
Mm-hmm.
kind of realizing that this is exactly where I want to be sitting. Along with, if you're interested in the design system side of things, some great resources is Dan Mall on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, as well as Nathan Curtis. He's an
Okay.
engineer and also, can understand the product management side of things as well. And they
Okay.
articulate that very well. And again, it doesn't need to necessarily be design system side, but to understand that relationship between the two of them, they do a great
Okay.
job of describing that.
Okay. Okay. So I'll make sure to put those in the when I release the podcast. I'll put it in the comment section. Okay, that's good. So, um, and also in terms of like job roles specifically, are there UX engineering specific roles that someone can apply to, or are there like connected roles maybe under different titles that someone can apply to but have like a similar job role as a UX engineer?
Yeah, I've seen more and more UX engineer jobs popping up,
Okay.
even just on LinkedIn and a couple of other
Okay.
places where they've popped up, and I'm like, oh yes, finally we're adopting this name.
We're moving.
um, so that's been great to see. We also would say, looking under the description, the job
Mhm.
description, looking for design system, or looking for where it says maybe understands CSS, or understands JavaScript, or, in the reverse, understands Figma, or
Okay.
understands, whatever design tool that team is using.
Mhm.
So looking for kind of those similarities between, looking for that specific the words that show up between the two of them. That's what I would look for.
Okay, okay. Maybe we can leave that for next time around kind of what
Yeah.
words to look out for in a job description, because otherwise this episode will go on forever. But no, that's that's really cool. That's really cool. And I don't want to put you on the spot now, but we did come into contact via the Be More Festival, obviously run by Eddie Bealis. Are you mentoring at the moment, kind of UX and upcoming UX engineers, or have I just dropped you in it?
So I am not yet. I plan to sign up to
Okay,
be a
okay,
mentor. But
okay,
I
okay.
I would love to. Yes. I've mentored some people just who have reached out on LinkedIn. If they reach out and you're interested in kind of learning more about my role and UX engineering in
Okay,
general, I'd love to talk it through and get to know a little bit more about your background and what's going on, and your goals for your career.
okay,
But yeah, you'll see me soon on ADP lists. Right now,
okay.
I'm just a
That's good.
mentee, and it's been great. So
Okay, that's good. I didn't want to drop you in it there and make you feel embarrassed or anything, but yeah. So this could be the catalyst, this episode, to you being an official mentor on ADP list.
yeah, there you
That's
go.
good
Yep.
because I think you have all the skills for it, and you've got a lot of
Oh,
knowledge
thank you.
in UX engineering. So maybe you'll have me as a mentee in the future. Who knows?
Love
Cool.
it.
Thank you, Jessica. We'll stop here because I don't want to, because I know it's early for you, and I imagine soon you'll have to start doing some form of work. So, thank you for your time. And
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate it.
yeah, and obviously we were speaking before. Maybe in the future we'll get you back on for something a bit more technical. So yeah, we'll speak soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.